this month, I hope that we can use this time to share together and all participate and talk about some best practices that we have discovered in our Christian Unity committees in our annual conferences. So it's your time to share some best practices with each other. When we first started doing this UMEIT Zoom monthly meeting, this was one of the things that was asked for, is once or twice a year, just to give you all time to share with each other. And so I'm going to be quiet here in a minute and ask you all just to share some thoughts. And then I'm going to conclude by asking you the question, if it would be helpful for us at the national workshop at UMEIT USA, wherever, to talk about doing some of these things together, like maybe all the annual conferences might focus on the same thing for a year. So that's where we're going. But what are you guys doing? What do you want to share with each other?
Not everyone at once, right?
Is anybody doing anything in your Christian Unity commissions or committees?
Our main focus in the Susquehanna Conference for the last few years has been on identifying and awarding, we call it the Marty Cox Award, who was a pastor from our conference who is no longer with us, entered the church triumphant, who did a lot of work in ecumenism in his area. So one of the things we do is we elicit nominations from the conference, as well as sometimes we have to enlist our district superintendents to look for nominations so that we can give examples of what other churches are doing that has worked well. That's ecumenism. We have a table at annual conference where we have materials available, and we ask people to share what they've done. A lot of it's along the lines of, say, shared vacation Bible school and that sort of a thing. We're trying to this year, and this is where I would love some assistance from this group, at least what's already in existence, maybe building on that. But we want to do a better job of proactively communicating not just what resources are available, but trying to encourage more to be done, at the annual conference, and helping to equip that. And so sharing things on the Facebook page, for example, getting together ministry packets, if that's something that we've already got the information, that we can just share or repurpose for our conferences. I know that it's there to a degree. Maybe we can do more than that, or maybe it's sufficient right now. But those are some of the things that are on our minds, because we'd like to have we don't currently have I'll call it functional page on our website. So we'd want to be able to, we don't want to reinvent the wheel of what's already there, but we'd like to be able to point people to resources in a way that's less convoluted than it is right now.
Well, I will say that the annual award is a really good idea. I know the Kentucky Annual Conference also does that, just simply calls it the Bishop's Ecumenical Award. And that's a really good idea. I hope some other folks might have some suggestions of other things you can do.
Well, the other thing is, historically, we've sent somebody, I don't know if this is true for all of the annual conferences, we've sent somebody to the National Workshop on Christian Unity, but our funds have been cut slightly. So we didn't quite have enough last year to go in person. We did the virtual option. But there is a lot of interest in attendance of the UMEIT meeting, even for people who wouldn't be able to attend the conference. I don't know if there's a way to facilitate that being a hybrid option, but I do think that there would be interest if it were.
That's important information. Thank you, Renee. And Chris and I will talk about how we might do that. We didn't know how we could do it this past year, but maybe this year, since it'll be in Wisconsin, we can figure out a way to do it So thank you. I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, thanks for that, Renee. That's very good feedback for us. In Wisconsin, our committee has really focused on interreligious education. For us, that especially started after the Sikh temple shooting 10 years ago. That really became a focus for us. That was just outside of Milwaukee, which is where I'm serving. And so our committee has focused on an event, usually a full day long bus tour with the bishop to various religious or our various religious community partners, so that we can tour their worship spaces, learn more about various religions, meet some of their leaders, and then have some dialogue and conversation between United Methodists and practitioners of other faiths. And so that has, like I said, a day-long bus trip, usually in the fall sometime, with about 40 to 50 people that have been involved from around our state.
I'll give you just a couple of examples of what we've done in the Western PA conference. We also have an Ecumenical Achievement Award that's yearly. And so that's a nice thing. We have done things like we had a joint lay academy session with the Islamic Center of Pittsburgh, which is one of our biggest Muslim communities, worship spaces. And we've had lots of joint meetings with other denominations and ecumenical organizations. We've done an ecumenical youth anti-racism event. And then we try to recognize full communion agreements between the UMC and others, anniversaries and that kind of thing, as well as participate in lots of interreligious and ecumenical events.
Akiko, I know you guys, oh, Abel, I'm sorry, I just now saw your hand.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jen. United Methodist Church in Nigeria is one of the churches here in Nigeria, most especially in Jalingo, Taraba State. All mainline churches here. And for a long time, United Methodist has not been all that communicable body of the mainline churches here in Jalingo because of a crisis that we have in the United Methodist. And our bishop has not been all that in forefront to this. And so that has, we've been lagging behind in that. So there is a need, we're looking up into the future. There'll be gonna be some changes in the leadership. We'll be able to the community movement here so that we are able to champion the cause of coming together. Some of the issues that challenges that we have within the within Christendom here, and I want to say thanks to Christine New, the GBCS, who came some 6 years ago when we had interreligious. And through that, we were able to visit, bring in Muslims into worship, to testify, to say, oh, this is their own first time to come into church, that they've been church building, that know what it is exactly, what it means to be a kind of like an eye breaking and ice breaking, and so we were also chance to go into mosque and to also observe how that kind of like created trust and confidence amongst us. And so, but then these days we need this very because of elections that are coming, the future of Nigeria, being staying together as Nigeria is very inter-religious council or gathering, dialogue and all of that, so that we are able also to champion the cause of unity and peace in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you. I remember when that event happened, and it is all about relationships, right? And you also made me think of something else, and that is that we offer a global UMEIT every year. And as of now, we don't have a place for 2023. So it has to be an invitation of a bishop for David and myself to come and do some training. And the bishop has to be involved, her or himself, somehow. But we are looking for an invitation from an annual conference outside the United States for us to come and do a training. Hopefully much like what you're talking about, Abel. Kiko, I was just thinking, I know you guys are doing stuff.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, our conference really is focused a lot on interreligious work and connection. I think a highlight from last annual conference was our CIR was approached by Religion and Race and Justice and Advocacy, and together we hosted bystander intervention training during annual conference, just to like give people tools about what to do if you see someone being harassed, someone maybe of a different religion. And that was really like tangibly practical training. And that was in partnership, of course, with CARE, the Council on Islamic American Relations. We've done a lot of webinars, or not a lot, but several webinars, one on just kind of best practices, how to engage with your ecumenical and interreligious neighbors. So a few of our members just shared what they're doing in their community. And that was a conference-wide webinar during the pandemic, kind of like in the heart of the pandemic. And then earlier this year, we got together a group of interfaith chaplains to kind of share about their experiences as chaplains, why they feel called to this work, how it is serving, being a holy presence to folks of different religions. And I thought that was really great. Becky, remind me, let's see, we had a Islamic chaplain, we had a Buddhist chaplain, we had a
Jewish chaplain,
and a Christian chaplain, right? I think, yes. So that was, oh, hi, Roxanne. We got 3 folks from our CUIR here in Northern California. And then one thing we try to do is every year at annual conference, submit some sort of resolution. Not necessarily that we think that everyone's going to, kind of take this back to their local church, although that's always the hope, but really just to educate our annual conference and like promote conversation. And so sometimes I think we've in the past actually pulled it off the consent calendar, even though, just to have conversation with the wider plenary. Roxanne and Becky, is there anything else?
you said it very well. And I think especially our chaplains panel was really, really interesting and insightful. Several of them spoke very heartfully of what it's been like because of the pandemic and their interesting interreligious experiences. It was a really good webinar.
yeah, I want to make two quick comments. And one is that I've always thought that it would be a very helpful thing to have an interreligious conversation with chaplains about life transitions, like death and birth in particular, because they are different. And if chaplains don't know these things, they could get really in a bad position. So I really affirm what you guys have been doing. And the other thing is your suggestion about legislation to your annual conference is excellent. And I wonder if that's a good transition for us to talk about, are there things that we could do together? If all of the leaders in Christian unity and interreligious relationship building in all of the annual conferences, for example, chose to put forward the same piece of legislation, oh my goodness, millions of people would be reached. So what do y'all think about that? Do you think it would be a possibility for us to try something like that maybe in 2023, 2024?
I love that idea. I would say, I think this last year we were seeing many annual conferences sharing legislation around gun safety and, some of the important issues in our society. And we kind of watched those go from conference to conference through the whole entire annual conference season. So to have some legislation that we were sharing, I think would be a great idea and a really good resource for us.
Well, I'm going to put on my list of to-dos to find out a way that we could figure out a way we can make the UMEIT gathering at the National Workshop hybrid, and then maybe really try to push to have all annual conference leaders be a part of that and add to that conversation a discussion about what we might do together in terms of legislation or something.
So I'm curious about what some of the legislation that you have put forward in your conference, Akiko. What kinds of things have you talked about?
I mean, nothing too fancy. It's just been like in kind of the rationale in light of increased white supremacy and anti-Muslim acts, for example. These are some ways you can be in relationship with your Muslim or Jewish neighbors. The last one we did was specifically on reaching out to our Jewish neighbors. Off the top, I can let me look it up. Off the top of my head, I can't remember specifically, but they've kind of been very broad with bullet points about reach out to your local Jewish synagogue and see, maybe you guys could do a service project together, or provide an iftar for the Islamic mosque in your community, or like get your youth groups together. Sorry, I'm not doing a great job. Let me look to see what some of our other ones have been.
Those are really good examples, though. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
One more person to share. All right, Nick, I know that you did the curriculum down there in Tennessee.
I did. Give me a moment. I'm going to close the door in my office.
Yeah. So we can do all that. Sorry about that.
No worries, man. So yes, we did the curriculum. It was a really good opportunity to kind of get some more participation from not only from our Episcopalian colleagues, but also I had a couple of Lutherans drop in on us, which was lovely. I think that the hard part right now is that COVID fatigue, and I'm sorry for jumping off early. We had a lot of visitors, so I don't know if y'all talked about this, but the COVID fatigue has made doing some initiatives a little more difficult, because folks are in general just kind of tired of the adaptation. So The hybrid really has not been helpful for us. We have done things in person just so people can feel connected. Thankfully, Nashville is a place where you can find lots of gathering places. So we availed ourselves to some local breweries, and that was really helpful this past year to kind of just build something. Sadly, we have lost a lot of our colleagues in the call system to other places. So I'm doing another rebuild, and my team also is rebuilding as folks have come and gone. But I'm grateful because I think the ecumenical interfaith work that we all do is still so necessary, if nothing else, because a lot of folks, as they come and go in towns and cities, just need a connection point. So even if it's professional, because of the personal nature of religion, I think a lot of folks find a lot of meaning in what we do when we gather. Was that helpful, Jean?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've heard about legislation, the curriculum, which you can find on the bishop's website. It's called UMEIT Online. And lots of other things, the awards and the interreligious bus trips. So lots of ideas out there. And then Chris and I will take the idea of making UMEIT USA hybrid and talking about doing something together. So thank you. I hope this has been helpful. We're committed to try to keep this at half an hour so that we're not overburdening you. So I will say my deep appreciation